I guess we could lead into the video from there. Welcome, everybody. Today, I'd like to introduce Plastic, Affective Memory and Waste, which is a cultural project developed by a young creative team from Bucharest, Romania, that proposes a foray into the world of plastics. They encourage public dialogue and question practices, representations, and uses of plastic, both on an individual level and within socially shared space. We will have a film screening of their project, which I believe will start soon.
E frumos. E atractiv. N-ai zice că sufocă. Am ajuns să mă simt claustrofobă după puțin timp cu el. Abandonată. Lost. Cât de diferit e exteriorul comparativ cu felul în care mă face să mă simt. Respir greu. Aducea moarte. Până nu am simțit că mă sufocă, nu mi-am dat seama cât poate fi de dăunător. Nu mi-am dat seama ce mă sperie mai tare, textura sau cum acționează el în afara prezenței mele. Cu toate astea, încerc să văd cum e să fiu ca el. Oare el respiră?
Thank you. All right, this piece we just screened is titled Asphyxia. Joining us today is Georgina and Alina of the Plastic, Affective, and Memory and Waste Collective. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for the nice invitation. It's an honor to be here and to reach this type of public, this type of audience across the oceans. We're super happy to.
Of course.
Here.
Is it a buonasera, a buona nukta? Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, buonasera, which is good evening, and good night is nopte buna, but it's already when.
Yeah, is it midnight right now where you are?
Yeah, exactly. It's midnight.
And happy birthday. I hear today's also your birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. All right, great. So could you please begin by telling us a little bit about your manifesto? I understand there's a plastic manifesto within your collective.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, this manifesto is actually part of a project, our cultural project, which was called Plastic, Affective, Memory and Waste. It was a cultural intervention project actually developed here in Romania for 6 months, starting last year's June. And the idea of the project was that we were trying to point out and actually sound the alarm on this global consumption, the global crisis of the plastics in our environment, but both in our memories. So the whole idea of this project was to begin this journey into Alina's own childhood memories and adolescent memories, and trying to uncover all those pieces that actually formed an entire personal memory out of plastic. So her first toys, of course, her first, I don't know, experiences with the outside world, which actually formed pretty much a common experience for our generations. So she's born in 94, I was born in 89. And pretty much both of us kind of took part in that generation where plastic was so beloved and it was consumed basically unfiltered. It was so much needed. It was so much valued, appreciated.
Especially because we are in the East Europe and we were in communism and then the capitalism, and that's why we have a lot of plastic here. And it's a very big problem here.
Yeah, plus with other parts of the world as well. But regarding our own, localization and our own perspective, definitely it was part of our culture, this hyper consumerism. And that's what we're trying to focus on with this cultural project. And the fact that this plastic is actually kind of a metaphor for a lot of the things that we are doing collectively as a society, meaning the type of world we are creating for other generations, the world that actually we're leaving behind, all these problems, that all these issues that present generations have created. So all of this, both personally and socially, collectively, brought us to this manifesto to answer to your question.
Of course.
Which is, it's a form in which basically we are overlapping the artistic side, our artistic background, with the eco-activism.
Yeah. And I wanted to share that I was born in 1991, and this was also very much a part of my upbringing. I'm from Chicago, kind of the suburbs of Chicago, but it was a lot of, Barbies. And I noticed, I think in some of your images, you also had these like plastic blow up toys. My parents, would take me to my aunt's growing up. They had a pool. Later, when I got a little bit older, they built a pool in our backyard. And it was a lot of these like similar blow up items. And now there are places in Chicago, there's a store called like Five and Below, I think, something like that. And like, oh man, like everything in there is $5 or less. And it's so cheaply made and made like widely accessible. And like almost everything from there is going to end up in a landfill so quickly. And that kind of like they mass produce items that are maybe really popular right now for whatever reason. And then it's just like such a limited use you'll get from these items because they are just cheaply made. So nothing really is like built to last any longer. And a lot of these items are, of course, plastic. So yeah, even though like I was like, yeah, like that does look, it's really reminiscent of the 90s, but it's also like part of our current issue, even with all of the like recognition that we need to have more sustainable models of engineering and more sustainable products. We're still seeing a lot of these like fast fashion items being mass produced, and like we'll just consume them quickly, and a couple of weeks later they're going to end up in a landfill because like they're just not built to last. So that is a common problem also within the United States, I'd say, and it's definitely a global issue. So thank you for sort of creating this sounding alarm within your own community to draw more attention to these issues, but also point at the the ubiquitousness of this problem, and that you'll see it everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. The whole point actually, and I just wanted to mention this, they are actually all of them made to last. I mean, if you really consider the fact that plastics are the most durable materials in the world, so they degrade up to, some say 500 years, up to 1,000 years or so, if ever, like on the bottom of the ocean and all that. So actually, in a way or another, if you would allow this metaphor, humanity has invented its own immortality through plastics. And so this is actually a type of philosophical question we've been posing through our work. And both Asphyxia as well as photo performance series that we've had, which is called Plastic Intimate Collective or Single Use. And we've been asking ourselves about the place that actually this plastic occupies in between, if we would separate humans from nature. And what is this place that it occupies? And what are the things that plastic reminds us of regarding our relationships, our commitments to nature, to the environment, and the way that we programmatically unfavor ourselves most of the times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. So actually, I think that there was a question about the way the narrator describes not being able to breathe and how it becomes sort of a metaphor for the world and how the earth will struggle to breathe as well. Could you talk a little bit about the narration in the piece and how sort of the dialogue that is portrayed came about, and what some of the thoughts were that you had? And also, I believe, Alina, were you the performer in that piece? So if you have some thoughts, if that was in fact your voiceover as well, and how some of these ideas came to you, because I know I have written down, I thought this was like really interesting, how it felt hard to breathe, it felt deadly. Like it really is one of those situations where as you're performing with this material, I'm sure that there was some minor suffocation that started because you were underneath the plastic for so long.
Yes, there are all my thoughts, and also Georgiana's and Alex, and it was like a real conversation with the texture, the plastic bag, let's say, plastic texture. And I don't know, because I don't have an answer for this now. It's like, I'm not sure of anything related with plastic. And why we have this in our lives, I don't know. Right. It's still a question for me. But somehow it seems to be like a toxic relationship we all have. So I think that's the main point for plastic in our lives.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Regarding your question about how the video actually came to this shape,
Mhm.
Alina was having this very strong idea that the texture and the material would be so interesting to explore both visually and kinesthetically, with feeling and with all the senses. So basically this shape, this foil, this plastic foil, is sort of an attempt that we had to experience the life of inside of the plastic, you know, because it's been so heatedly represented, and nowadays it's obviously most of the time so badly judged, and naturally for the causes that it really does bring to the planet. But at the same time, we just try to shift the perspective and see, okay, but how does it feel through the eyes of plastic? How does plastic feel? Does it feel anything? The waves, the wind, the ocean, the sea, and all that. And so we were brought to this place in Bucharest on a lake very near from my place. And Alex was the one who filmed it, Alexandru Claudiu Maxim, and both packaged it up together. So he's the author of the visual art behind it. Then Teodor Rodulescu, our colleague, is the one with the sound design. And the idea was that after we had shot this, sorry, and as well a series of 3 exhibition that we had on our profile with the photography. I actually realized that we were talking a lot about it in between me and Alina. Actually, the entire project was with me and Alina talking behind it.
Yeah.
And what we're doing.
Conversation, what is plastic? But
Yeah,
how it
all the
feels?
philosophical problems, everything
How
that
can plastic breathe?
yeah. And so we had these conversations, and then I realized that the feelings that she was describing while she was performing with the plastic foil were so intense. And so I said, okay, we have to document them as they are. So basically what I did was, on the phone, she was telling me everything about how the plastic was feeling on her body, on breathing, the heavy breathing, the suffocating, and all that. I was typing it all down. And then afterwards, she read it back as a voiceover, and that's how it got to this final type of a product.
Oh, that's
But
great.
all consciousness. I mean, it was keeping, it was actually an organic experimentation of this type of material, which is in fact the beauty of this medium that Alina works with, performance.
Yeah, and also I'm an art therapist. I think that's why I have this way of being, like reflecting things, questioning myself. Oh, what is about plastic in my life? Yeah, and I think the message is also good. It's not so hard to see it. Oh, it's a beautiful thing, because plastic, it's beautiful. That's the main problem. So
Yeah.
it was something not really bad or negative that we want to do. No, we want to create something impressive, beautiful, shiny, in order to express the toxicity,
Toxicity.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to express myself when I talk about this. I don't know why. It's so personal and so deep inside myself.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I think that the voiceover does a really good job of that, though. I think that was a really smart addition to the piece, and I really liked hearing the story of how it came up, like very organically between the two of you through discussion of the project. I do think that that's sometimes how some of the best collaborative processes sort of like resonate, the really like smart ideas just kind of are the things that you can't stop thinking about, and then they come through in the process. So I like that a lot. I appreciate getting some backstory on that. But I also wanted to mention that like Alex did a fantastic job with the cinematography. And I seemed to notice that the editing sort of changed. So the movements were almost like fast paced, and it felt almost like a struggle to breathe. Like when you're just like kind of a struggling sensation. I thought that the movement between what you were doing in those scenes and the way that they were edited really felt like a difficulty breathing and that struggle. And so I just, that was something that I noticed while viewing your piece, and I thought that made a lot of sense for the discussion of what your work is about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that you noticed the rhythm.
Yes, the rhythm and with the music as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, so about the idea of how good ideas actually become reality, manifest in reality through collaboration. That's how we actually ended up after this 6 month of official project, because it was funded by a national program. That's how we actually managed to continue our work, and it grew organically from both of us, from Alina, from me, from the people we were working with, Alex, Theo. And so we had several more actions, let's say, both like in terms of cultural interventions and in terms of artistic products like video, and then more photography, because that's where I'm currently exploring. And that's how we managed, and that's how we got to identify ourselves through this form of collective. And it's both like a super flexible place to be in terms of ideas, in terms of collaboration. It's exactly the kind of a form that we, both me and Alina, strive for and thrive with.
Yeah. That's great. So it was like a funded through a national program. That's really interesting. Could you actually tell me a little bit more about that program and your background and how you began engaging with like environmentally conscious work?
Yeah, so I'll start, and then Alina can back up.
Sure.
So this is like a program that is basically, it's the only national program in Romania that offers funding to independent cultural projects in the arts area, visual arts, performance arts, dance, choreography, then digital art and new media. It's a sort of an organism for the Ministry of Culture. And it funds regularly, like 2 times a year, this type of areas for funding. So and both me and Alina have a background with this, because given the fact that it's the only place independents get money from the state to support, we've been doing it for so many years. So, and it's actually intertwined with the story of how we started working for the project. And it was in December 2019, and Alina was proposing over a coffee with her book of notes, where she had noted down all her memories about her plastic childhood and everything. And she was like, okay, I know you're very interested in stories and storytelling and this foray into ethnography and personal histories and micro histories. How could we do something about, all these plastic memories that I have that I cannot recycle? My full of plastic and I cannot recycle it, So basically how it was actually generated through Alina's personal memory. That's our input inside this world of ecology. And then we started growing on it actually and acquiring the practices. For me personally, it was the whole experience of the project with everything that you saw today and everything we talked about, the photography and all. It was for me a true landmark for my representation in the world as being a conscious human being regarding the environment. So it was definitely a milestone for letting go of some practices and acquiring new practices. Both me and Lilina, we're attracted to this part of recycling, of reusing. We're heading towards minimum waste. Not there yet, but heading.
Great.
So, yeah, I think Alina can follow up with her own.
Was something very new also for me because we didn't work together before.
Mhm.
And was totally different. It was a new chapter, is a new chapter for us. And now we are both very interested in all kinds of eco practices. Now it's a lifestyle, I think, for both of us. And I don't know, was so natural that it's very hard to remember the process because it was very organic. Like it was, I don't know, was so simple somehow, and everything was very new for us. It was my first manifesto ever.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Yes, and it was very interesting to give myself a lot of time to see very clear all these things in my life, in my memory, and to accept them,
Mhm.
to accept everything, like the childhood, the things I have, the things I love. I love plastic, and I don't know if it's good or bad.
Yeah. Would you like to read the manifesto in the, or I could read it if you prefer. I know it's in like the sort of the chat for the Zoom call right now, but feel free to read it if you'd like, or if you prefer, I could do that as well.
You can do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do that. It's hard to avoid guilt when thinking of plastic. We see in plastic the all culprit, the author of the collapse of ecosystems and the economy. We view in others' waste the source of loss of the four seasons. However, we produce, consume, overproduce, overconsume. We pollute, we lack integration, while recycling is rarely efficient. We make use, we rejoice, then we discard. Our pleasures are disposable. We carry it with us, inside of us. It's indispensable, indestructible. Rubber, soother, toy, ashtray, can. Is it truly necessary for plastic to become all these? Nature is not the opposite of plastic. Plastic is not inferior to nature. Can the two coexist without endangering each other? We work outside labels, rather we investigate and interrogate. This is subjective exploration in the world of plastics, an exploration of its affective memory and waste. So yeah, that's really beautifully written. Thank you so much for creating and sharing your manifesto. Yeah, and I also realized when you were sort of talking about your childhood in the 90s, I of course saw the quote, like "Life in Plastic, it's fantastic," from that song. So that was also very popular in America.
We have a song like this in our channel here. We have our SoundCloud account, and you can find "Life in Plastic."
Yeah, it's the Barbie girl song, right? Yeah. Oh, great.
Yeah, but it actually became soundtrack for another performance, which was the final performance in this 6 months project, which was called 94 to the Future, Life in Plastic. And it's one of the songs, again, masterfully mixed by our colleague Theo, infused with both the joy of those moments and that, that period, that epoch, that very iconic epoch, and the gloomy part of, you'll see. It's better if you check it out. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. We have the link to that as well. Do either of you have a favorite project that you've worked on over the 6-month period? Is anything like, oh, that resonated the most to you as an artist, or do you sort of love all of the works the same?
Alina, I think the most personal for you, which was it? Was it the final performance?
Yes, yes, because yes, of course, that was the most personal thing ever. And also, I think this song, "Life in Plastic," it's fantastic. Was oh my God, was so much for me to discover that this is in my mind, in my body, in my whole life. We can listen to this song if you want, because it's very interesting to see this, to listen this.
Which
The first one, "Life in Plastic." The first one.
oh,
At the
oh,
beginning.
yeah.
Yeah, on top. Yeah.
Perfect.
Was my concept.
It's fantastic, life in plastic. 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 It's fantastic,
Goes on like that.
it's fantastic, life in plastic. It's fantastic, life in plastic.
A lot of plastic.
Plastic, yeah, and all this obsessive, repetition, basically the way that we do most of our lives. Plastic in the morning, plastic at noon, or plastic in the air. We breathe it. It's all around us, in our jobs, in our everyday life. From the moment
In our laptop, in our mobile. Everywhere.
Absolutely. I like how the tension builds. There's an ominous sound sort of growing in the background as it repeats over and over again. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's something that we definitely need to be more reminded of, more cognizant of, is the fact that like there is a conscious consumer like responsibility that we have as people who inhabit the earth, who make decisions on a day-to-day basis, like what we purchase, what we use, whether or not we bring something like a reusable bag with us. That's like the bare minimum we could be doing. There's so much more. So yeah, I definitely think like it's really interesting to hear that the kind of initial beginning of this project was more or less from a Alina's like written perspective of like memories of just like being so integrated with plastic in your youth. And yeah, there's like definitely a personal engagement that all of us have, but like we have to like, it has to change. We have to start changing, or like it really is going to be quite catastrophic for the environment. And I just really enjoy how different each of your projects kind of engages with the thought of plastic. Like it's not all about necessarily reflecting on data and information that we already kind of like we know it, but we're not always it doesn't make it necessarily a call to action. It doesn't mean that we're going to do much to reduce or reuse our consumption. So it's interesting to also just think about the tangibility of plastic as well, and our personal relationship with it, without automatically going for like its damning qualities on the earth. So it's really just interesting to me, and I'm so excited to see the progression of your collective as you have more and more like members who contribute in very different ways, like the sound art, the performance aspect, photography. I saw that there's also like sort of this video mapping aspect that you're doing as well. And could you tell me like who spearheaded that part of the initiative, and what does some of that like, what does that media look like, and like how do you process it? If either of you have the means to sort of answer that.
Yeah, I think this is a question for our video artist and super and Alex, which is also the author behind the visual in Asphyxia. That's his medium.
Oh, great.
Definitely, yeah, that's his medium. Regarding your the way you described, this collective, and that's actually the whole idea, the way that we are trying to integrate this different type of perspectives and expertise within this collaborative process, which is, again, it starts from plastic, obviously, but we're at the present moment, at least 1 year after our beginnings, we're trying to develop more and more areas of what this ecological perspective means.
Spirituality also.
Exactly. Both me and Alina have this really important part, which is personal, but also it manifests in a lot of other areas in our life, which is towards being more spiritual. So again, the mix up between spirituality and ecology, and a type of ecofeminism and the type of eco-philosophy are the things that we are working towards. And it's not just regarding plastic. We're actually talking more and more about other things. For instance, as I mentioned, we're working with this financing program here in Romania, and we're actually submitting a new project right now, which is going to be another sounding alarm, but on the deforestation and illegal cutting of forests. And it's going to be intertwined with both me and Alina's passion for discovering rituals, protection rituals, and stuff like that. So we're expanding, the field of the things that we're working on as we discover ourselves, and as we find out that we have so many things in common all the time, but actually see things differently. And apart from that, just to come back again to your previous question about what was most personal for me during those 6 months, I actually discovered that I was a photographer. Basically, project for me was a sort of a revelation, and I was like super encouraged by Alina, and this is something I'll forever be thankful for, because she saw that even before I did it, probably. So yeah, it was actually, and it's also my first step into the area of photo performance, which is a different type of making photography, which is again at the brink, at the edge of, let's say, photography in visual documentation of photography, a more ethnographic look on it, as you are both a creator of the moment, but both an observer and a documenter of what the other is experiencing through their performance. So we could actually show the images if you're okay with that. It's again on our website.
Sure, Giselle, if you want to pull those up. And then actually Giselle and Amy, who are here today from Dispatch Gallery, they're both photographers, actually. I don't really involve much photography in my personal practice, but if they have any like follow-up questions for you, that's really pretty amazing that you discovered this while in like the 6-month process of developing this project. Because these are such incredible shots, just absolutely beautiful. I feel like Giselle does a lot of performance as well, and documentation of her performances is a major part of her work. So I feel like she probably has a connection with this work as well.
If I can just like jump in to say, like, as a photographer, I feel like it's a weird realization when you're like going from like, okay, am I a performer? Am I a photographer? Like, when am I transitioning between all those things? And I think like the bravery to just try different mediums, like, is brave and like in its own way.
Yeah, definitely. So the ones, the series is divided into 3 parts. You can access them through artistic products. That's the tab. And yeah, the whole process actually of building and reaching towards these photos was super intense for both me and Alina, as we were discovering so many things at once about ourselves in the process of taking these photos. So it's the first 3 tabs, which should be called, yeah, those 3, the 3 sections of our virtual exhibition, let's say, which actually manifested into a physical exhibition, again, which was my first ever photography exhibition in Constanța, a seaside town here in Romania. So yeah, basically these were probably the most powerful pictures I ever took until now as a photographer. And they're divided into these 3 chapters. The first one is breathing, where we try again to analyze, to document, of course, conceptually, metaphorically, this breathe in and breathe out of.
It's an incredible shot, by the way.
Yeah. And then the other section, which is called Disputed Territories. It's the second book. It's more about these interferences between human and nature, and how plastic holds, the middle ground in a way. And if you see it in that way, you might discover that it's a sort of a fight, which one will win in the end, in between, plastic that is here already. It wants to occupy space. Humans want to occupy space, but then nature is the one who is suffering all the struggle in the end. And these were shot actually in Brașov, which is another city in Romania, during one of our presentations there into a festival, which is called Amoral Festival. And they were taken in their backyard, basically, in the festival's backyard.
Everything was so random in our project.
Yeah,
So
but
natural.
organic, randomly organic.
Yeah. Yeah, but with a lot of meaning for us, and that was amazing for me to talk the same language, but we didn't know, so we didn't know each other, but we have the same feeling. It was nice to discover this.
What was the climate like? What was like the weather? Because I know you're not wearing a whole lot in these photos.
They were shot in August and September last year, so it was pretty hot.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
You never know the photo shoot.
Yeah. Well, climate change, actually, it's becoming more of a reality.
Mm-hmm.
So these ones are the last bulk, and they were all shot in Constanța, which is the seaside town. And actually, it was regarding this very personal aspect that both Alina and me are touching all the time. The road that we took, so the photo performance experiment, let's say, started way top on the top of the hill, and had this beautiful old staircase that climbed down to the seaside, to the seashore. And for me, that part, this alley, was like one of my most personal memories from childhood, because that's where I used to like go with my family for the seaside. And it was this down, movement that I felt while Alina was going, down the same steps that I was doing when I was a kid. So again, really intimate things that we resonated on without knowing, but somehow they overlapped.
During this process, I felt so feminine. I don't know why. And
The photos turned out just beautiful. Like it, I mean, the plastic almost comes, it looks, it can, it looks really restraining in some images. Other times it looks like a gown. So it comes across very differently depending on the shot. Like one of the first scenes by the seaside, for me, it looked almost like reminded me of like when kind of birds consume plastic and they sort of die and wash up on shore, reminded me of something like that. Or if they get sort of tangled up in plastic and they can't move and end up drowning for that reason. So that one felt more like, a death scene, where other ones just feel like graceful dancing or like something just very beautiful and alive. So it's really changed depending on the image. Yeah, they're very beautifully composed and yeah, just stunning. Giselle and Amy, did you have any comments or questions about the photo shoots?
I mean, I just want to like jump on. I was just saying like the way that you described like the first image is like being caught inside of the plastic definitely like reminded me of like seeing animals like that. I work outside, so a lot of times I'll see like pigeons or like other animals that like have stuff like stuck around their legs and they'll just keep walking even though like their leg is like partially gone or like I don't know, that kind of stuff. But the way that like you compare that like freedom and like the beauty of it with like this like torturous aspect, I think like also reflects within the manifesto, the way that you talk about like how it's like both beautiful but also like entrapping. I think that's how you phrased it. I think you said.
Yeah.
I have to find the specific word, but it was something like that.
And Giselle, did you have something you'd like to share? You're on mute currently.
I apologize. I thought I was on. I had my mic on. But no, as a performer as well, I think that relationship between both of you and that negotiation, because I will photograph my performances, but again, like you said, you're developing this new practice of this performative photography. And I was curious maybe to ask you what that relationship and what that dynamic is like. I know you mentioned it previously with going down, ascending these steps from your childhood. So you as a photographer, you're also almost recording this experience, right? And I think that when we look at photographs of a performance, we think of them as documentation, but you're defining this as your, as its own thing. So I was curious if you could explain that further as well. What performative photography looks like to you and how do you define it?
That's a really beautiful question to which I have no answer, just my intuition. I don't really think there are or should be any type of recipes for these types of matters. So I'm just going to talk about what I felt. And what I felt was, I think for the first time, maybe, as I've been doing photography for like 10 years, but it's the first project where I've really felt a photographer. That was the, shift in the perspective. And it all basically boils down to the connection to the moment, I guess. And the fact that me and Alina have this really good connection, and actually we've been exercising it. These were actually initially called exercises, performative exercises. The fact that they turned out like this is great. But for us, they were exercises in how we work with each other and how much of my attention visually can become performance, and how much of her performativity can become my visual lens. So definitely it's about the synergy. Definitely it's about the way that we communicate without words, the way that she knows exactly how to do some things for me to capture them in that way. And probably, I think, if the feeling is mutual, Alina.
Yes, and it's the same with Theo and with Alex. Alex is also here. He can talk.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Alex, you can say everything you want.
If you unmute yourself.
Giselle, if you have to, there you go. He's on there now.
Yes, he's here. Alex? Mysterious.
The mysterious creator behind Asphyxia.
He said sorry. Oh.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay.
We were complimenting your cinematography earlier.
Yeah.
I'll try again with headphones.
I also just wanted to comment and say I really like that you said that Georgina, you said that there doesn't have to be a between those two things. Like, you don't have to say this is documentation work, like it's work in itself. Because I know, and a lot of the people from Dispatch know that I'm also a art documentation photographer. So like sometimes it feels almost like, okay, like I didn't create this piece, but it kind of becomes its own thing when I'm documenting it, you know? And that collaboration, that really important collaboration between you and Alina, like making the performance, like becomes its own relationship as well. And I think like you guys kind of laughed a little bit, and I know I also do like fashion photography occasionally, and there's like, how much like are you willing to do? Like, does this pose look awkward? Does it look cool? And there's a lot of like, you can tell that there's a really great vulnerability and communication between the two of you in the images, because they look so vulnerable and comfortable.
She's my soulmate.
Yeah.
And also Theo and also Alex. It was an amazing team.
Yeah, definitely. It was the first time I had been working with them, but still it felt like forever in a way.
I love how you described it, soulmates, and how you naturally are able to work with each other, because I think having a collaborative art practice can be difficult, but it can also be wonderful. And I think that when it works, this is the kind of work that is produced, and that's really exciting, and also very exciting to see where you're going to go next with this new project. I wanted to ask, do you want me to share the other video, Alina, you sent it?
Yeah, Limbo.
Yeah, I can share it as well.
It's very different from Asphyxia and everything you saw.
Still short though.
Yes.
Keeping it on the short side. Yeah, so this one has an entirely different story, and it's based upon a very a specific reference. It's very culturally coded, let's say, because for the Romanian audiences, it will become immediately explicit what it's about. So there is this ritual that is being performed even nowadays in the Balkan area, and specifically in Romania, which is a type of caroling with a costume or a mask, which represents an animal, symbolizes an animal, in this case, the goat. And it's the type of ritual that is performed in between Christmas time and springtime. So it's in that important transition moment of the year when all those regenerative powers come back and all the old is gone and the new is supposed to come in. And the goat is a symbol in a way, especially with this performative context that it works with going from family to family. Traditionally in the old communities, they would have this small theatrical performance, and at one point the goat would suddenly die, representing in a way the death of the old and the old year, and then it was supposed to be rebirthed. And so this was our take on the traditional part of rituals, which actually nowadays have a lot of elements in their costumes, in the masks, because traditional elements are so hard to find. You barely find those old masks anymore right now. And so they're being replaced more and more with these plastic elements. And so, yeah, Alina can also talk more because she was, again, the one who generated the idea.
Well, I don't know what to say. I'm good at doing performances, not to talk about them. Yes, it was different the process because now we start to construct something that was something new to do the costume, the clothes for the goat, for the character. And this happened at the beginning of this year. We and also Alex were together at the seaside on the 2nd of January. And it was different to perform there with the goat. Was very different because there were a lot of people there, and it was actually a live performance and then a video performance, but it was more than, I think it was a happening, like just a happening. And the audience there was very participative, like they were close to me. They are looking very interested of our project. They didn't know what to say, what to think. Oh my God, what's this? Well, what are they doing? Oh yeah, pollution, plastic. Yeah. and was very different because all the things we are trying to do and we explore are something new for all of us, and every time is very new, everything. It's amazing, the process. Alex, you can talk, you're here.
Guess not.
No, he's not here. Ah.
I'd like to like add on to that. I think like even if you aren't from, like, I know I didn't understand like the cultural reference with the but I still felt like I could understand it, even like being from America and Chicago. It almost like personifies some kind of like, it almost looks like a monster of some sort, but it's like very confrontational. And I like the way that you were describing the people behind you, because I think it's always interesting. Like we asked like one of the other performers from like another video performance, I was like, there are a lot of people at that beach behind you, like, and the way that you shot it with the long exposure was so cool with the people in the background, Georgina.
It was full of people, and I can't see anything. It was very different. I couldn't see it.
Yeah, but
With
the
the
confrontation. Oh, sorry, I like went in and out. Like the confrontational aspect, like you think about it, like how the video would be confrontational, but also like how that must have been for people in general. So like I was thinking like, oh, you wouldn't like throw a bottle out and then like just, I don't know, I wouldn't litter. I wouldn't like throw a bottle out my window or like just throw my trash on the ground. I find that like offensive, but I like, it puts in your head like, why is it okay for a company to do that once you put it into the bin? Because it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. And the way that you're like approaching these people and performing this makes it like purposely puts it in their face instead.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how uncomfortable that must have been in person.
Yeah.
Would you say that because it's more of like you said, I think the Balkan area, they would did they recognize what you were doing, or that it was supposed to be a goat figure?
Yeah.
That's also helpful then, because they get the context. Because I feel like that for me, knowing a little bit more about the costuming and the transition between, like winter time to spring, it gives a lot of more meaning and context to the title Limbo as well, because it's sort of like, oh, this is the process of like kind of turning a new leaf. And it's also, yeah, if you look at these like waste elements and like what you can do instead of, producing all of this, it also kind of gives you context to the idea of like starting anew. Like we can turn a new leaf as a society and like look at this as a chance to do better.
Yeah, that's exactly the whole point, I think. I mean, not the whole point, but a big point of the video is about the idea that we are faced with this change, with the possibility to choose from the old ways to the new ways in a way. So I guess, yeah, that was the story behind Limbo, apart from the ritual references, and actually the fact that this ritual is still performed today, and all this degrading of the elements actually brought it back more to the people's consciousness. And yeah,
the hardest part with the costume was not to keep all the parts of the costume on me, because they were flying and we are trying not to pollute, and it was a big responsibility. I was very afraid of not produce more pollution on the seaside.
Did the waste materials that you were wearing, were those from your personal like consumption, things that you've like eaten, or that was also something that I was definitely thinking about, like, oh, is that something that you were able to make from maybe a couple of weeks worth of trash or something like that?
Yeah, our 3 months of trash. Yeah.
That's great. It's
It's not so much.
it could be worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, just still like keeps us, keeps us in check. So it's good to know it's like, the 3 month amount, that you amass,
One
because
mask, one costume.
yes, exactly.
Emotional is hard to do this and to work with yourself every time, to be like searching in yourself deep inside every time. It's exhausting sometimes.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm also familiar with a few other artists who work like with an environmentally conscious practice. There's an artist named Aurora Robson. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her work, but she kind of intercepts the waste stream and takes plastic bottles and creates artwork with things that normally would have either been recycled, or you can only recycle a finite number of times before it ends up in a landfill. So she creates things where she actually pays a lot of homeless people to help her find and collect waste in the natural world so she could build artwork out of it. So like kind of collecting things that would normally go to waste is like a really interesting way of creating artwork, and like an environmentally conscious way of doing that. So I was also, really happy to see you kind of making use out of this, what would have been waste. So it's always interesting to see what artists can make out of these objects that are waste. And especially, I don't know, I really do enjoy sort of a costuming as well. So it looked great. Giselle or Amy, any other questions for the artists while we have them on? I don't want to keep you too late because I know it's probably past 1 a.m. in Romania, and I'm sure you're very tired, but we, very much appreciate your time and sharing with us.
I don't have any other questions, but I just want to say thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your work and for sharing this project. And as I said earlier, I'm very excited to see what other collaborations and other projects you're going to produce in the future. I'm looking forward to it. So thank you.
We are going to have an eco performance festival, eco future performance here next year. So we keep in touch for this.
Yeah, we would love to help promote that in the future. If you have any final thoughts for us or things that you'd like to share, feel free to take this time to do that. But thank you again. It was really just a pleasure speaking with you today.
Yeah, a pleasure for us as well. Thank you, and for inviting us and for, allowing this sharing of information, but also your connections are very cool as well. I mean, I can see you as part of the team and everything, and it feels like a super warm environment, and we're glad to feel that, the feeling of being integrated into that is super cool, because like we have no clue about each other. we're just screen, but like for an hour we've shared, our life stories more or less.
I want to hug you, all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. When sort of the pandemic calms down, it would be lovely to try to connect in person at some point as well. Like what a dream that would be. But yeah, thank you so much. And oh yeah, as Amy said in the chat, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah.
It's an honor for me to be here. And thank you a lot for reminding me how beautiful is our project and how valuable is our work. And thank you a lot for this.
Of course. And we'll make sure we share the documentation video with you as well, so you can share with your audience.
Great. And thank you also to the artists that you've been promoting as well. And congrats to their work.
Yes.
But you should check out the gallery. It's so cool.
Thank you. All right, everyone, have a nice night. Get some good sleep.
Thank you a lot, and all my love. Thank you.
Yes, you too.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Peach. Besitos. Kisses. Oh, hard to say goodbye.
I cannot pinch that button.
Yeah, it's so hard. Press the button. Oh. Keep in touch.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.